What's going on, guys? It's Uncle Muscles. How's everybody doing? I really do appreciate the support you guys helping out my channel, watching these videos for once even. You guys have been superb, and I love y'all so much. Don't forget to check us out, twitch.tv/UncleMuscles, and we're on PvP 0000101 or some combination of those numbers. Okay, let me show you what I do for my settings. And we also just figured out how to make your aim very crisp, so this is all good information. Escape, settings. Cool. I turn off I turn off more guidance and on-screen controls. This makes it so, if you'll see, there's a lot of like superfluous information that's on the side of your screen, and then just a lot of like random stuff that pops up all the time. I don't need that, so I turn everything off. I know how to play the game at this point. When you're first playing, it might be useful, but you can eventually turn this off, in my opinion. I also turn off screen shake intensity, and I turn up the screen or camera distance all the way. I think it starts off like 12. You actually can just see it behind the blur here. This just gives you more real estate. That being said, this also might decrease your frames per second because now your computer has more graphical information to process. So keep that in mind. If you don't have a very good computer, you're going to want to turn your FOV all the way down. Camera autofollow, I have off. When using a flashlight, I also have this off. This is a personal preference. It does not seem to matter. And in fact, I'm not even sure if this option even has an effect in game currently, to my knowledge. Now, also, camera autofollow during melee attacks. I've noticed that for a more cinematic experience, you can leave this on. However, you do get a little bit discombobulated when you're hitting something, and then all of a sudden you're like spinning around doing random stuff, and you're trying to actually hit something, and you're trying to control your mouse at the same time. I do turn this off. I think it's better. Camera position in OTS mode. I leave this on because otherwise, when you go in and out or when you're running, it seems like it will, the aim or the camera will actually start shifting back to a central position, and we don't want that. Environmental scrolling, I have this turned off. That's the default. I'm not really sure what that does. Doesn't seem to be pertinent to anything that's really beneficial for any reason. So these are my settings that I have on. What else is here? Oh, quick switching. I use this. This is kind of preference. I don't like being able to scroll to my melee. I'll just hit 3 for that. So I turn quick scrolling on. It's just between your first and second primary and secondary weapon. Quick switch weapon. I think if you use quick switch weapon, if I'm using my first weapon and I hit 1, it'll switch to my second weapon. If I'm using my second weapon and I hit 2, it'll still switch to my first weapon. It just switches back and forth between those weapons, regardless of whether or not you have one attached or the other attached, or equipped rather. And then HUD in first person ADS, which is aim down sights ADS. I turn this off, so you'll see when I right click, most of the stuff on the left, or like the chat disappears. A lot of stuff disappears. I like this clean view. It's nice. I don't need to see the chat and everything when I'm aiming. So that seems to be a really good way to just kind of get a very crisp picture. But there's a couple problems, and we're going to get into it in a second. What else is the last thing? Oh, display whispers. I turn this off. You can leave it on. Everything else is pretty much default. I changed the crosshair thickness. Crosshair transparency is also there. And then you can turn this off or dynamic if you want, but I actually think it should always be on. So let me just see what happens when you hit dynamic. Yeah, it's the same thing. Oh, it changes, right? That means it changes. So yeah, I would just leave it on always, and then you'll always have the lines up, and then you can change that as you go. The main thing, though, that I want to talk about is the controls. This is what I finally figured out, and it's super important, I've noticed. I like crouch to hold, or I hold my crouch button, so I hold down control. That's another thing we can do in the key mappings. I'm not going to get into key mappings and key bindings. I'm sure you guys figure that out. Control is my crouch. I click that, I hold it. That seems to be the only thing you really need to change, except for aiming is press. So when I press my right click, I will then be stuck in aim down sights. If I hold the right click, I'll be over the shoulder mode, which is actually a better way to aim. Technically, I don't like it personally, and I'll show you once again why. It's actually very important. The aim down sights to this game is wrong. The aiming in this game is wrong. I'll reiterate, aiming is wrong. It's better not to aim. So we'll get into that in a second. Pistol fire mode, I have on hold. These are actually pretty important. That means you don't have to click every time to fire. You can just click and hold the button. And now let's get into really the magic of all this stuff. It's the camera sensitivity and the sensitivity coefficient. So as I understand it, between the sensitivity multiplier is a number between 1 and 100, and it's percentage is between 50 and 150% of that raw integer. So what this gives you, as I understand it, is you get, and now we're going to whip out the calculator here, you get the sensitivity coefficient, which is bounded by 50 to 150. So it's actually 100% here, but it's between 50 and 100%. So not 0 and 100%. It's a different bounds. But you get 100 essentially like decimals, or 100 points of alteration within the one integer of your sensitivity. If this, I'm butchering this right now, but basically all this means is that you're multiplying your sensitivity coefficient, which is a percentage technically, by the third person or the first or third person standard or the OTS or the first person ADS down all of these. So what I did to make this easy for myself is in my like HyperX thing. And this is my DPI. This is my standard DPI I use at the moment. And a lot of people probably don't realize this. At the moment, I'm using 6200. People usually think I'm down at 200 and they start complaining at me. It's kind of funny. But yeah, right now I'm using 6200. And so I'm using that with a multiplier of 1. And I was doing it 80% of that 1. So we're going to whip out the calculator real quickly. So it's literally 0.8 times 1 times 6200. This is my raw, what's this called? This is like my actual sensitivity in game. If you want to go from number to number with everybody, this is what mine is. What I would recommend for most people is your sensitivity is probably not low like mine. What you really, all this means is you want to keep all of these the same. And that might change depending on individual preference. We can get into that at some other time, not in this video, but essentially keep all of these the same. So if you think 30 is good, that's the default. You want to keep 30 the same for all of these, right? Now I want to keep it 1, and I'll explain why. When I keep it at 1, I'm very much into FPSs, first-person shooters. The smallest change in my sensitivity can have a drastic difference. I aim with my elbow. I use my entire desk, twitch.tv/unclemusclez. You can actually see me aim on stream if you're curious about it. It's obnoxious how much real estate I need, how much desk real estate I need to be able to aim properly. People think I'm joking, but this is actually a huge indicator of how I can usually tell when someone's cheating in a video game. It's like a very good indicator because people don't really understand this very basic premise. Anyway, I use a very, very low sensitivity. So for me, it makes sense to just use this at 1, and then I change my sensitivity coefficient by points. These are all by essentially 8% every time. Now, your bounds are between 50% and 1.5%, and you can actually change that deeper. So instead of going, if I want 1.5% of 1, I would do this to 150 and keep this at 1, right? Now, what happens if you want 1.75%? Well, you can keep this up to 2, and then it would be some percentage of that, right? And I forget what it is. It's like 80-something or something, right? So, like, 80-something% of 2 is 1.75. That's the math that's going on here, right? And we can run the numbers on this. I don't want to mess up math on a stream or on a YouTube video, so I'm just not going to bother. I'm going to pretend like I explained that 100% correctly without any diagram, and you guys all understood that. But the idea is that the finer form of sensitivity that you're trying to refine here is with the coefficient. Essentially, these are usually all going to be the same. And this number is just some percentage of each of these numbers. So let's just say 150% of 1 was too tight. Okay. Well, then let's increase the sensitivity a little bit to 2 and try it at 100 and work our way down. I hope that makes sense. I think it does. But to be honest, this small idea, which is something that I should have realized a long time ago, pretty much applies to every console game that has ever existed. And a lot of times I always think it's really difficult to actually set up my sensitivity correctly. It's not. They're just using this format, and it's actually really useful. So I got to get in the habit of this. So like I said, for me personally, I have a very, very low sensitivity. I'm running a sensitivity coefficient of 80 at 1. All of these are the same. So whether I'm doing ADS or whatever, So this is over the shoulder, and I'll explain why this is actually a better aiming system than ADS, which sounds ridiculous, especially if you're used to first-person shooters, but I'll explain in a second. But when I do this, this is still the same sensitivity and multiplier of 1. It's the same as this. It's the same distance on my mouse being moved at the same time. But if I want to change this and make it more sensitive, so if you go into our settings really quickly, and then go into control, and then now... this is essentially going to be almost double of what we just had. We were at 80, now we're going to 150. 80 times 2 is 60. But now it's much easier for me to do spins around and everything. So it's just we've increased the sensitivity, but not in a way that's so drastic we can't refine it. It's nice. It's actually a really interesting way of attempting to do mouse sensitivity. And to be honest, I'm not, especially for like console players and everything or cross-platform games, I actually might be partial to the system at this point. I think I get it. It's really nice. So for me personally, I have everything at 1, and then I refine it with 80. If you're having a problem with this scale, up it to 2, and then go backwards and slowly maybe do it in increments of 10. It's like overclocking your CPU or your GPU or something. Like you take like a big step, and then you work down a bit to kind of get it to work. And then you find your stability. And it works in either direction. For me, generally, I like to make my aim really tight, and then I work my way up to where it actually seems like I'm not playing through cement. And then that's how I usually get all my headshots, just click-clack, smashing on these hoes. Mouth smoothing. Wow, I have a problem saying this. Mouse smoothing. Mouse smoothing. Excellent. I have this turned all the way down. If someone in the comments goes, look at Uncle Muscles, there's no CPU use for turning it all the way up, I can see an argument for this being at 100 because essentially, especially with FPSs, you don't want your aim when you're going from left to right to look like this, which is when you have an incredibly sensitive mouse, it's hard to go from left to right because your hand isn't perfect, especially if you move with your hand and not your elbow like I do, which is, once again, this is how I kind of can tell when people are cheating in video games, is because they know nothing about this stuff. So it's clearly they're, compensating for the fact that they're absolutely just downloading an application to help them play a game and completely in denial. But whatever. We'll get into that in all of my other previous videos that I've ever made and then gotten copyright stricken by Embark Studios because they're in denial themselves as a game company because they're sponsoring their own streamers to cheat in their games and create a completely false environment for trying to compete. Anyway, I digress. You want to use the coefficient to more properly refine your aim. That's the idea that we're getting at here. Okay? And so the other last thing is mouse smoothing, there we go. And then that, I don't know if it makes sense to use it. I would assume that is something that is being software applied, so it's actually something you don't want. There's going to be some type of lag or latency in your actual movement compared to what actually comes out. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. If I'm wrong about that, please, in the description or in the comments below, please let me know, because I actually don't know the answer, as I just reiterated 1,000 times. Everything else, I think, is pretty much the same. Controller aim assist, I have this turned off. All this stuff I have turned down just because I was kind of curious to whether or not it had an impact on my mouse stuff. And I'm not 100% sure whether or not it does or does not. So a lot of times in games like this, you'll see that the aim assist works for keyboard and mouse. Like all you have to do is have like a gamepad plugged in on the USB, and then all of a sudden it applies to all the peripherals. I haven't tried to do that. I don't want to even know if it works. I don't want to know. I don't even want to know. So if you know the answer to that and you're in my comment section, say, even though Uncle Muscle says he doesn't want to know, the answer is this, and pretend like I didn't say this. And then you can put that comment in there, and I'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate that you did that, even though I don't want to know. I'm saying I don't want to know. Perhaps I actually do want to know the answer to that, and I'm just saying I don't. Who knows? I think that's it. Did we cover everything? As far as mouse stuff? Oh, this is it. Okay, this is literally the most important part of the video. ADS doesn't work. This game is a hit scan game, so wherever I click and shoot, that's where the bullet goes. There's no drop off. There's no fall off or anything. You don't have to be like, oh, I want to snipe this Digby. Here, let me shoot up here like an idiot. Here, let me shoot up here like a real life person who has to like learn how to snipe for 6 years in the army or military, and then that's actually how they get shots. I don't want to do that. Yeah, because whatever. It's not a video game. But in video games, normally, games that are fun, you can point and click, and whatever you point and click at, it gets shot. Now, the problem is that when you're switching in and out of just running around third-person mode, and here, we'll aim at the right of his head. Aim at the left of his head. it's kind of hard to explain, but you're especially when you're moving, you see how there's your aim is actually doing a figure eight. Here, let's aim at the stationary tree. Your aim is doing a figure eight, and for whatever the reason, especially when you aim at long distances, it doesn't seem to actually line up with whatever your aim is at. A lot of times it seems to be aiming to the left of what you're aiming at. So if you're trying to do like a quick shot or something, you have to be kind of careful, because it's very easy to kind of lose your aim. It's not one-to-one. It's not like Widow headshot. It's so hard to explain. It's so hard to see, but once you realize it, you go, oh, that's horrible. And I'm actually kind of curious. No, you see how I'm aiming up here, and then it aimed over here? Look at the white dot in my crosshair. I'm aiming up here. Okay, that was the best one. I was aiming up here, and then sometimes it doesn't do it, but sometimes it does. I don't really know exactly what's causing. Okay, that was it. You saw how I aimed up here, and then all of a sudden it was over here. The aim is not perfect. I don't know what is going on with it, but for some reason, the aim is wrong. The aim is wrong in the game. It's not you, it's not me, it's not your mouse settings. It's the aim in the game is wrong. So be careful. Now, like I said, if you do over the shoulder, that seems to not happen at all. Like you always get it 100%. So I might actually end up switching to over the shoulder being my right click, because one, the animation for the ADS, although it is nice, it's excessive, and then it's wrong. So yeah, but the problem is that I'm used to having my character on the right side of my screen, and you can see right now, see how it's like going up to the left? I aim at the bottom and then it goes up to the left. See, this is what I noticed. See, my aim is drifting to the top left. I wasn't aiming at that wall ever, and now it's going even past that. So I'm not touching my mouse. I'm touching the right click only. You can see how all I'm doing is coming in and out of my aim, and there's natural drift to the top left. I don't know what to tell people to fix this. This is annoying. This is incorrect. I don't like this. Anyway, I love you guys. Twitch.tv/unclemusclez. If you don't mind, check me out on X. Uncle Muscles on X. Hit me up on Discord. The worst team ever. Information is in the description below. I really appreciate all the support I've been getting from the Once Human community. You guys have been really awesome. I've been kind of switching over my content to AI and stuff like that. So if you guys are curious about that and maybe running AI or local language models on your AMD platform, that's really like some of the more intriguing stuff I've been doing at all over the past like 5 to 10 years with computing. So that's kind of probably where my content's going to start transitioning toward. But Once Human, you guys have been really awesome. The community's been really sweet. Not so much the moderators in the Discord of Once Human, but everybody else has been really awesome. So I will stay up with this as long as you guys are supporting me. I really do appreciate it. This is one of my favorite games by far. I'm just like, I'm getting old. I'm an old gamer at this point, and I gotta maybe figure out something a little bit more contributional to society than explaining to young gamers on how to aim properly in Chinese MMOs. Anyway, I do love you guys. I really do appreciate it. There will be a lot more content coming out for Once Human. And check us out. We're on PvP 010001 or some version of that idea. And that's it. Twitch.tv/unclemusclez. Hit us up on Discord. Join the guild. And you all are my best friends. I love you all so much. I have to go. Bye.